good afternoon for those that have tuned in and for those watching any of the recordings. Welcome to CG Labs episode 4, How Soarizon is Solving Your Drone Problems. I'm Dave Cummins, and as a quick reminder, these episodes will last for 30 minutes. They'll be streamed every Wednesday at 12:30. You can currently get them on YouTube or on our Facebook channel, and you can set up a reminder so that it will let you know when future episodes are going to be streaming. The format remains the same. We're going to be introducing R&D, innovation, technology, some of the stuff that we're using ourselves or that people have expressed interest in. Again, we're always interested in your feedback, and there will be question time at the end. So please start firing them through as soon as you've got them on your social. Allow me to introduce the panel first. I guess it's Mike, who is on the road today, but loves the notoriety, so has decided to join regardless. And also we've got Callum Holland from Soarizon. So, guys, introduce yourself, please, Mike.
Hi, Dave. Hi, Callum. By the wonder of modern technology, I am on the road and have a stable connection in a car park. So that's fantastic. I'm responsible for, I would say, a sort of a high majority of the drone operations in the UK and Middle East for CG Labs. So this particular presentation today is of particular interest to me as we as an organization transition onto the Soarizon platform. So it's going to be a good webinar. I'm looking forward to it.
And Callum, can you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So I'm Callum Holland. I'm the Customer Success Manager on Soarizon. So today I just wanted to talk a little bit about, the problems we've identified the industry is facing today, the small, medium and large enterprises, and how, through certain things Soarizon's created and are part of as part of our wider ecosystem, hopefully how we can help in some way. But thanks for inviting us. Appreciate it.
Carry on. And actually we spoke off camera just before, didn't we? I mean, I've been flying since 1999. Manned, unmanned, military and civil. I've got a fair few amount of hours, and I've seen a number of projects pop up, again, whether it's JARIS, it's the assets, the UKCA, and this is particularly close to my heart because everyone steps in and tells us they're going to solve this in 3 years. That we're not rewriting the book, we're just adding the chapter drone, and in my honest opinion, it doesn't work that way. You've got to rewrite the book, and I was really pleased when Thales and Soarizon particularly got involved here. We were really pleased to partner with you guys, and again, hopefully you're going to give us some of the problems that we need to solve, not necessarily a push on the Soarizon product itself. So without further ado, Cal, I'll bring your screen up.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Cheers. Let me switch to my side so I can swap the slides. There we go. Brilliant. So, what I just wanted to touch on, and again, thanks for having us on board today, is, the problems we've identified through working closely with industry for the past 2 years. Their pain points. What can we do to help relieve some of those pain points? So just a little bit about me there. In a former life, for my sins, I was a police officer. And what's relevant here in my previous role is I specialized in risk identification and mitigation. And, we're working in the aviation industry here, be it manned or unmanned. It's all about risk. If we can identify the risks properly and mitigate against them, and that's not just about the flight, that can be from an operational context as well, from how you manage the bigger picture. If we can identify those risks and mitigate against them, that's going to help us all in the long run. And, I'm all about customer engagement, and that's really what Soarizon is about. How close can we get to a customer? I know we've been working with yourselves for a very long time, and lots of other great partners too, on what are your pain points. So we're not building stuff or thinking about things that we've come up with that we think you guys as an industry, and I'm talking to everybody listening today, not just CG Labs, but everybody that's tuned in. We've listened, we've understood your pain points, and hopefully we've built something that helps relieve at least some of them. So what are the difficulties that we've identified through customer interaction facing the industry today? And again, this is from an operations context. And chaps, feel free to jump in at any point whenever I bring up any of these points here. The first one is, there's a significant administrative burden in ensuring your business remains compliant. So this is before we fly, before we put hands on the controller or put that battery in. How do you ensure that you remain compliant? It's massively administrative, and that's a problem. What I'm going to do is I'm going to list the problems. I've got some slides. where we begin to address those problems and how Soarizon's seeking to solve them. A big effort in integrating digital tools that serve a unique purpose. So, digital tools are fantastic. We need to integrate them, but we're in a place at the moment where there's a tool for everything. Everything's very niche. So what you end up with is 10, 15 different logins for different products. That wouldn't it be great if these were all together in an ecosystem? And again, that's the angle Soarizon's taken on this. This is a funny one because we got audited last year. I'm happy to say it all went very well. But how do you ensure you're ready for an audit at any time? If you worked how I did when I ran a drone business a few years back, it was all paper-based, it was printed, all compliant. But if I was to be audited, it probably would have taken me a week to get ready for it, grabbing all those bits of paper together. And again, so giving your flight operations team access to trusted source of data for safe flight planning. So, as an enterprise, as a CEO, as a flight operations manager, we have a collective responsibility to ensure that our pilots and flight crew have access to the right tools to do their job safely. And that's another issue that we're seeking to solve. And again, this goes back to the point before last, effectively organizing such vast amounts of data generated from the flight planning process. Monitoring the health of your fleet. An enterprise organization could have a fleet that's over £1 million. Some a lot more, some a little bit less. But these aren't cheap. The batteries aren't cheap. So the better we can monitor the health of the fleet throughout its effective life cycle, we can begin to make savings and make smarter decisions around how we use that piece of kit. And again, giving your team access to digital tools that work across all devices. So, you might have multiple pilots, multiple observers, 10, 15, 20, 100, 200, 1,000, it doesn't matter. But, the likelihood is where they're doing their planning, either in the office, at home, or in the field, they're likely to be using different devices, be it Apple, Android, laptop, Windows, Mac, Linux, for some of us. So if you're using a iPhone or an Android or a Windows computer, we've developed something that works across all of them, and regardless of browser. So I've got some slides now that move on to address those points. I don't know, chaps, if you want to say anything on them or add anything to them at this point, or if you just want me to crack on.
No, and again, I sort of agree with all the points you put, and it's one of those, particularly as the boss of a company, compliance is one of the biggest issues when you look ahead, whether it's CAA or whether it's even things like ISO, and you think, right, here comes the audit. You end up spending a week just making sure your paperwork's in order, whereas actually the reality should be that these processes are driven. And I like the idea of having a software that just pulls it together and makes it easy.
That's it. No, and that's absolutely it. And, you look at the cost of a tool like this versus a week's worth of your time. And that's when the economics really begin to make sense with this sort of stuff. So the first point leads nicely on, device accessibility. Our tool works across all the devices you can see on your screen here. So, the iOS, your Android, your browser. So any member of the team that you're asking to use this piece of software, this product, hopefully they've got some device at home if they're working from home, or certainly in the office, that they can use it from. And the nice thing here is you're likely to use a laptop if you're in the planning process, but when you're in the field, you've probably got a ruggedized iPad or your Android phone. So when you're doing your pre-flight checks and stuff like that, then you can access the same mission on the phone or on a portable rugged device, which is really nice. Audit and compliance. So this is a big one. Now, you've got an audit and compliance. I know there's a little video playing here showing some of it. All the missions are backed up. All the projects are backed up in one place. There's one account. There's one organization that holds all of this information. But if that information can be tweaked without any sort of record of that tweak or change being made, then we begin to lose its integrity, the integrity of that data. And having a policing background, I know all about that stuff. So, if what we do is we'll record any changes that are made through any point throughout that planning process, be it in the planning phase or mission completion phase. Has somebody gone back in and changed something? And again, that's not to say that everything that's being changed is being changed for nefarious reasons, not at all. But what's good to do here is if a change is made, then we can justify why that change was made. So when the regulators come in and say, oh, you've added a flight log 3 weeks after that flight. Why is that? Was that to make sure that your guys remained in currency? No. You can check our logs. We put a note here. We missed one of the flights out. We found it on our DJI flight controller. It was an error on our behalf, and we added it later. And that's what it's all about. It's about protecting the organization, remaining accountable. And when the regulators come in, you can do very quick audits, and they see that you're compliant. And then it goes down to a very, it's high level and there's low level. Flight crew logbook export. So all of your crew members have their logbooks. We know at every 12 months when we resubmit to the CAA, we've got to add our crew's flight logs. Well, one button, bang, that's all your crew's flight logs exported, all sent off with your resubmission and renewal application. So this touches on all of that information that we have to capture that can be such an administrative burden just for one flight. Well, one mission, it might be multiple flights, but there is so much paperwork generated from that process. I was generating in the region of 30 to 40 pages before I left the office to go fly a mission. And of course, that was Microsoft Word, and I printed it out, and this is going back 5 years. But that builds up, and I've still got folders and folders and reams of paper. So all the information you see on your screen now and the video playing on the right-hand side, that's held digitally in highly secure systems, backed up by Thales, who one of their key market verticals is cyber security. So all the data, all the information you're putting on here is not only organized but secure. This is touching on having access to reliable data. So as a manager, as a CEO, as a flight operations guy, we have a responsibility, a collective responsibility to provide our team with the right tools. We can't expect them to do their job properly unless we give them access to the very best. So here, hopefully the videos are playing and you can see them. We've got the most up-to-date no-time information as you'd expect. Our aviation data is fully compliant for planning a commercial drone operation. You can view it in 3D, so you can get a really good appreciation of the airspace around you. And the 3D visualization feature is now actually in the free version since we've launched V2. And again, all this information is available across desktop and mobile. And on the right-hand side, the mobile device, you can see when we click it, we provide you with all the phone numbers. So you don't have to go back into the AIP to get a phone number. It's there when you click it. Risk assessments, good old risk assessments. We love them, don't we? But, for a relatively simple job, a risk assessment, if you're using the as low as reasonably practicable model, can become very cumbersome very, very quickly. And what we've done here is digitize that risk assessment process, but embedded that process within the Soarizon architecture. So you're not going somewhere else to do your risk assessment. It's all in the same place that you're planning that mission. And you can see there, create risks from library. So what you're going to be able to do, so the risk feature exists now, that is there. You can log in and play with it today. But feedback from lots of people, including yourselves at CG Labs, is look, we have our own risk libraries for our volume 3s, our volume 1s. Wouldn't it be good if we could spend a couple of days inputting our risk libraries and our mitigations that are in our ops manual? So when we go through the flight planning process, we can pull them in. And we might have multiple risk libraries. You might have a risk library for a offshore wind farm inspection, but that's going to be different to a power station inspection. So again, it's saving time without increasing risk. In fact, you're reducing risk because you're enabling your pilots to have access to the accurate information contained in your operations manual. So that's another thing we've got here. organizational logbook. So I've already touched on this a couple of points ago. So this is a logbook. I'm happy to say the first iteration of logbook it should be coming in next week. So after your missions, you'll be able to record your number of flights, and then shortly after, you'll be able to access your logbook, as you can see here. And the nice thing is here, logbooks are both personal and organizationally important. So as a pilot, you're proud of the hours you fly, of course you are, and rightly so, and you want that logbook to be your own. But as an organization, you have a responsibility to ensure that your pilots remain in currency, are flying their appropriate aircraft. So, a bigger organization may have multiple aircraft of which they stipulate you need to be type rated on. Type rated is a manned aviation term from back when it was doing manned aviation. But you need to go to and do 2 hours on this particular aircraft before you can go fly it with your flight operations manager, for example. So the organization can track all of this too, and that feeds back into the compliance stuff. Now you're beginning to build rule sets that ensure that your operation manual is being adhered to. So that's that. That's fleet management service. So this goes back on to when I was mentioning we spend hundreds of thousands, millions perhaps on fleet. Now, back in the day, I say back in the day like it was 20 years ago, but in the drone industry, back in the day is probably about 5 years ago, which is funny. I managed my drones on, I actually had a printed paper logbook. I'd sign the drone out, I'd sign the batteries out, list any errors or stuff like that. Back then, you didn't get notified if you had a cell voltage anomaly on any of the batteries. So what we're building in here is a full fleet management service. So you might have 20, 30, 40 drones. You can mark them in and out of service. So if an individual is planning a mission, he selects or she selects an aircraft that's out of service, we're going to notify you of that. So it doesn't, when you turn up on the day, you suddenly selected an aircraft that's only got 3 rotors and it's meant to have 4 because one fell off last week in a tree. But also throughout when we're talking about audit and compliance, you're recording hours on the platform, on each individual platform, the amount of flights. Were there any anomalies? A lot of the software out there now, and let's just take DJI for example, although there's lots of others that do this. They will notify you and create a log if they identify an error. So why don't we pull that error in and notify you that during flight such and such, the FMU detected a cell voltage anomaly on cell 2 on battery 1. That'd be really good to let you guys know that. And again, it's all in one place. It's all contained. It's in one digital service. So that's that. Now I'm keen for us to have a chat as a 3. So I'm just gonna. This is the final slide. And we've got future functionality too. So, a risk management creator. So we're building intelligent processes. Back in the day, it's very manual. We're beginning to automate where we can keep safety as the #1 priority. So intelligent risk management of the operating environment around your area. Air chart map overlays. So, if you're in a particular area, you have a particular requirement, we can onboard that particular requirement and display it through our mapping engine to your account. Geologists, that's something that's very relevant to those guys. The high-level enterprise geology businesses, they've got very unique and very specialized map players that would be very useful for them to overlay within the Soarizon software. Live aircraft tracking. So, if you're the flight operations manager, you've got 15, 20 pilots around the UK, around the globe. Wouldn't it be good if you had a real-time view of all those aircraft in the air, exactly what they were doing? And if there's any issues, the pilot can report straight back to you through the Soarizon software. And that feeds into the UAV live data feed. And that doesn't just mean about streaming it back to the ops room or to the flight operations manager, but this could be a customer thing, right? This could be a customer engagement piece. Uploading imagery and video. So again, this is another digital service that we all pay for. We've all got some form of subscription to a cloud hosting platform, but that's another digital logging. So we want to offer that in the near future. So that's just cutting down. It's one less thing that you have to pay for. It's one less logging you've got to remember. It's one less potential security issue, because that's another password. So we're looking at that. The georeferencing, self-explanatory, ATC to make it really easy to access all the information you need at the drop of a hat. And again, booking drone operations functionality. So you might have an enduring contract with a customer, and at the moment they send you an email or pick up the phone, and that's how they communicate with you. It might be an enduring contract and you fly 3-4 times one week, no times the next week, 5 times the other week. Well, if they could book those in through the Soarizon platform, it saves your office administration staff time on the phone, time answering emails. And that's something we've been asked for by the industry. So I'm keen to have a discussion about this and talk. So I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully that was useful. And I think it'd probably be good now if we all have a chat about it.
I'm glad you mentioned Logbook and Pride. So I always like to play top trump in our office with my 3,500 hours. So I'm there, and we can start the discussion. Mike, I'll hand it to you because I know I always hold the questions. So over to you first.
Okay, I've got a few questions. From my perspective, I like the idea of being able to plan missions at my end and then assign them to pilots who are going to be located potentially down south or even abroad. What's the functionality going to be in terms of Europe and further afield? Is that in place now, or is that going to be part of the roadmap?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So in terms of the United Kingdom and Europe, we're launched. We're a commercially available service. So across Europe and the UK, we have plans to go into America and further afield. We're working on commercial models, but in terms of Europe, we're there. When we're talking about you setting up a mission and sending it to a pilot, we have that functionality now through something we call Cruise. So you could begin a mission and start the process, write down your requirements, and then you could push it to another member of Soarizon for them to go and execute that mission for you. Now, that is going to become more advanced in the near future in terms of how we actually manage an entire organization rather than individual missions. But today, we can do that. The functionality currently exists on the platform to do that, and you could send a mission to somewhere in Spain today if you wanted to.
Okay, and the other thing, I know we've touched on this, but what's of interest to me is the ability to pull information from the platform and compile that into reports that can be issued to clients prior to operations such as RAMs, etc., but post-flight and post-processing information, just to provide a branded document to the end client that looks professional.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, fantastic question. Yeah, we understood that we can invent the best digital platform that solved as many problems as we could in the world. But there's always going to be that requirement in certain situations for it to be paper, for it to be a PDF, for it to be a Word document, to send to somebody that's not on the platform. For certain things, you're going to need that. You're going to want a backup. It's a digital service. We know digital things can break sometimes, and you might not have signal somewhere. So, of course, you want to go to scene with your RAMS document printed out, just in case you can't access your on-site assessment if you're in the middle of nowhere in the field or something like that. So then if we've made you invest time and effort into planning that mission, it doesn't make an awful lot of sense to force you to keep that information in there. So what we're developing, and it's coming out, but hopefully very, very soon, is the first iteration is going to be an exportable mission profile. So you'll be able to select what bits of information you want to pull out. But essentially, throughout the flight planning process, all the information you enter, you can click which bits you want, but it can be exported into a viewable format, be it a PDF or a Word document. We're still tinkering with that. But then you've got it that you can either send on to a client or an insurer. I know for certain operations I did in central London that the insurer wanted to see my RAMs before they give me specialized insurance. So what we're doing there is we're saving more time, because if an insurer or a client said, oh, send me the RAMs, which is risk assessment and method statement for people that don't use that terminology, that's another half a day to do. It could be up to a day if it's a complex operation. So that's functionality dropping in the platform very soon indeed.
And for me, it's not just the time. I think you mentioned it, paperwork. We went on site with a contractor recently, and for 3 of us to go on site, we had to print about 30 pages each, so 100 pages, and there's 2,500 people on site. So you can imagine the amount of paper. It's just one of my bugbears. We went paperless last year, and it's a huge bugbear of mine. Every time someone hits print on the printer, why did you need to do it?
No, absolutely. The intention is we're not going to use paper in 20, 30 years time, hopefully a lot sooner, but there's still people, there's still organizations, there's still demographics that require that. But that answers another, that opens up another question. Is there something we can do with this tool with Soarizon that isn't just for, operators and enterprise and drone users, but is there something else on the client side that you as an operator could send to a customer, and they have, be it a click access link or something like that, and they get a digital version of that RAM straight away? Because are they going to sign up for their own Soarizon account if they're a customer that's requested one flight? Probably not. But if they sent a link that they click and it all comes up straight away without them having to register, they probably would use that, and they might accept that over a printed copy. So, we're not promoting the use of, print everything out and send it to your customers. It's just an option available, because I know, not everybody, especially not people in our industry, which is a very tech savvy industry, is prepared to digitize all their processes yet, unfortunately.
So Andy's asked a question. Andy's actually one of ours. He sees labs. I offered him to come on, and he was too shy. He said he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to go in front of the camera, but he's asking how and if so will integrate non-standard flight permission applications pre-mission. So I guess it's a good point, isn't it? If we're doing standard stuff, nice and easy, will Soarizon help us as drone operators put in non-standard flight permission requests?
Yeah, so this goes, it's a great question. This goes a step bigger as well, because we know when we're communicating with regulators, be it the CAA or any regulator across the world, the FAA or the regulator in France, whoever it is, it's not just NSFs, not non-standard flight applications. You might have an enhanced non-standard flight application. It might be a temporary waiver to, you might be asking just for one mission, a slight adjustment in your volume 3 for one mission. You might send a safety case. So it's not just, are we going to enable you to submit NSFs? It's, are we going to enable you to communicate and share data with the regulator through our platform in order to achieve some form of acceptance or rejection, be it an NSF, be it an enhanced non-standard flight application, be it an amendment to your volume 3? And the answer is we're working closely with regulators, and that is certainly on our roadmap. We want to offer that functionality to customers.
Good. And I think probably one more question. And from Roland Corey Wright, which UTM system does this draw data from?
Yep. So we're not a UTM system at the moment. So the public facing version of Soarizon is not a UTM system, and I think that the term UTM, unmanned air traffic management, I don't want to say it's a little bit misunderstood in the industry as a whole. There's things we need to fix. There's things we need to get in place, and there's some great companies out there that are already working on this. Soarizon has its own UTM ambitions as well as other great companies. What I can answer, and I think it probably the angle you're getting at with that question, is where do we get our data from? Our aviation data, and currently that's provided by Snowflake. And when you're on Soarizon, one of the things we do, we tell you where we're getting our data from. We don't hide it. We want you to see where we're getting that data from, so you can go and fact check it for yourself. And it comes back into that accountability side of things. But UTM, great question. I think we could probably have a webinar on UTM as a whole.
Change the book versus the paragraph. Callum, we're going to wrap up. So just quickly, how can people get in touch with you and or get on Soarizon if they want to?
Yeah, absolutely. Great. So you can go on platform.soarizon.io or just head over to soarizon.io, and that's our landing page. Sign up for free. Doesn't cost you a penny. We've recently released a second generational version, which is absolutely brilliant. Looks really slick, and it looks like the videos you've just seen in the presentation I've just done. Sign up for free. You don't have to put your credit card details in. It's a no-brainer. Go and have a play, have a fiddle around, tear it apart, come up with questions, come up with ideas. Our contact details are in the help section. You can reach out to me. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn or Soarizon on LinkedIn. Send me a message. My email address is callum.holland.e@thalesdigital.io. And again, you can find that online. Reach out any way you want. Let's have a conversation. Let's see how we can develop something that's going to work for your business, your company.
Brilliant. Callum, Mike, thanks very much for your Wednesday lunchtime. And for everyone else that joined or watched the podcast afterwards, please join us next week. We've got Jackie McLaughlin on from React Tech. We're going to look specifically at personnel tracking, manpower tracking, but particularly with a view on COVID and social distancing. They got a fantastic piece of kit. I really like it. So we wanted to have a look, obviously very topical with COVID now, and particularly people going back to work. So that should be a really exciting, I say exciting, for me, it'll be an exciting webinar. So guys, thanks very much. Thanks for joining, and stay safe.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks guys.